2021 Plan Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Anna here.
Sullivan here.
Brillo here.
Lorick here.
Bukevich here.
Guzikowski here.
Goldani here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Before we do the minutes, Carrie, would you like to read in the notice of video conferencing?
I apologize, my computer just froze.
Oh, okay.
1 second.
That's okay. If you need time, we can go to the minutes and then read in the notice as well. How many of you are old enough to remember when a television would go off and it would say, we are experiencing technical difficulties.
Yep,
Please
my
stand."
PowerPoint froze, but I can read the meeting guide now.
That would be great.
City of Oak Creek is authorized to hold this public meeting remotely during the COVID-19 public health emergency under the March 16th and March 20th advisories from the Office of Open Government and the Wisconsin Department of Justice. Per the advisories, this meeting being conducted via Zoom video conference with telephone conferencing capabilities was duly noticed per the City of Oak Creek Municipal Code and statutory notice requirements more than 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Members of the public have been advised of the options for participation via direct mailing to property owners within 300 feet of a proposal, via the COVID-19 information page on the city's website, via social media, and via the information contained on the meeting agenda. This meeting may also be viewed at the city's YouTube page, the link for which was contained in all aforementioned notice methods. The meeting recording will also be accessible on the city's YouTube page within 48 hours. Plan commissioners and participants are initially muted upon joining the meeting. Plan commissioners and staff have the ability to mute and unmute their microphones throughout the meeting. Please mute at all times except for roll call, motions, voting, and when recognized by the chair. Roll call and voting will occur per the usual and customary procedure, starting from Plan Commissioner's seating positions south north in the Common Council chambers or as authorized by the mayor. The chair will facilitate questions and comments by calling on each Plan Commissioner or by requesting the use of this raise hand function in the Zoom webinar control panel. Only speak once you have been recognized by the chair or moderator. Applicants, their representatives, and all other participants who wish to speak will be unmuted when there is a direct request for information from the Plan Commissioner staff. When the participant uses the raise hand function within the Zoom webinar control panel and the moderator verbally indicates that they are unmuted. When a phone participant dials *9 to indicate that they wish to speak and the moderator verbally indicates that their line is open. When unmuted, all participants must state their name and address for the record, then proceed with comments or questions. Questions and comments may also be entered into the Q&A function within the Zoom webinar control panel. Staff and/or the moderator will monitor this function during the meeting and provide the information requested. There shall be no private messages or side conversations during the meeting utilizing the chat or Q&A functions. Chat and Q&A messages are part of the public record. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. That will get us to approval of minutes of February 9th, 2021. Has everybody had a chance to review those? And when you are satisfied after looking at them, and there's
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of February 9th, 2021.
Anna seconds.
Okay, just a little bit of housekeeping before we do the vote. As usual, Christine will vote first on this particular subject item, as we talked about 2 months ago. If we will have a second vote going on the next item. Matt Sullivan will then vote first on that one, and we'll wrap around through Chauncey back to Christine. So we will alternate. I've talked to the city attorney about it. We do it at council, and I guess for lack of a better word, it doesn't always put the same person on the spot voting first. This is standard practice, and we just haven't been doing it. So with that, I will call the roll, starting with Christine.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, I.
Grillo, I.
Lorik, aye.
David, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Hold aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Okay, thank you all. And again, I will prompt the very first person until we kind of get the hang of this going forward. Carrie, it won't be on you. I'll try to keep the order, okay?
Sounds good. I'll help out where I can.
Appreciate that. 5A, new business. Consideration to review conditions and restrictions for a request was submitted by Dave Doro for conditional use for the outdoor storage at the property at 10,001 South Howell Avenue. Carrie.
Just want to confirm that there were no significant common council actions to note.
Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped right over that. Thank you.
Not a problem. So what we are discussing tonight is the conditions and restrictions for the conditional use permit that was approved or recommended for approval at the last meeting for the outdoor storage of created parts and products. You'll recall that when we discussed the site plan, there was about 2.5 acres of proposed additional asphalt, and the areas have been striped as per the plan that's on the screen right now. There is an area that was removed to accommodate the loading and unloading of those crates in that area. Curb and gutter was proposed around it. The storage height of the crates, as was mentioned both in the staff report and by the applicant, would be no greater than 7 feet. Initial landscape and lighting plans and initial stormwater have been provided as well. Just to refresh your memories, this is the proposal for landscaping, the details for which are still under are being worked on. So if we go to the conditions and restrictions for this, if we start with section 3, which is on page 2 of 7, 3A specifies that uses allowed on the property are limited to those within the M1 manufacturing district, the conditions and restrictions, and all applicable code sections. B are the restrictions specifically for this particular outdoor storage. One area limited to crates containing parts and equipment associated with the principal use of the property. No storage of flammable or hazardous materials. Crates shall be located in a maximum of 30 designated and striped storage areas on the southwest corner of the property, and that's per the site plan that was submitted. No storage shall occur outside of the striped areas or in the loading area. No parking or storage of vehicles, equipment, merchandise, parts, etc., other than those that are in the approved storage area in the crates. Drive aisles shall be kept clear at all times. Curb and gutter shall be provided around the exterior boundaries of the area. Crates shall not be stacked above 7 feet or the height of the vegetative screening. All screening shall be reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission. Vegetative screening and berms shall be installed and maintained year-round in conformance with landscape plans as approved by the Plan Commission. Section F, this was requested at the last meeting by the Plan Commission regarding restoration of the storage area should Komatsu's lease terminate and the conditional use permit expire at the end of 5 years. Moving on to section 4, under parking and access, landscaping shall be provided for all parking and loading areas in accordance with code and in conformance with all plans approved by the Plan Commission. Under section 5 for lighting, specifically for this property, mentioning that all light sources shall be shielded and directed downward. Light sources shall be shielded on the side of the fixture that's adjacent to the residential neighborhood to the north. And the color temperature shall be limited to a maximum of 3,500 kelvins. And we've been working with the applicant's consultants on that. And we really appreciate that. Under section 6 for setbacks, the outdoor storage, just a little bit of clarification here. We do have 40 feet as the front and street setback, but it's no closer than either the front plane of the existing building or no closer than the extents as approved by the Plan Commission as part of site plan review. We don't want that outdoor storage area just expanding without Plan Commission review. And then rear and side setbacks are at 5 feet, although this would exceed it because they put that 8-foot buffer there with the landscaping. And then finally, under section 8, duration and assignment of the conditional use permit limited to 5 years, specifically to Komatsu, and at such time that expires or Komatsu's lease terminates, the conditional use permit also terminates. And on the screen now is the motion for approval. If there are no other questions or concerns, this would be what would be recommended, and I will turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Is the applicant with us? Would they like to say anything, or would they just like to wait for questions, Tom, at this time?
There are several people that registered to speak for this or are present for speaking. I do have one person raising their hand right now.
Okay, please put them on.
Alrighty. Kevin, you're going to be allowed to talk. Please state your name and address for record.
My name is Kevin Risch, R-I-S-C-H, 8308 47th Avenue, Kenosha, Wisconsin, 53142. And I'm here representing the owner, Dave Doro, as well as Komatsu.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. You're just here then for questions if needed, correct?
Yeah, I am here, but I'd just like to, if I may just point out just 2 areas that Carrie just read.
Yes.
Carrie, under item 3, D as in David, it states all screening shall be reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission. Does that mean we got to go back to the Plan Commission with the current plan that we have right now with the landscape buffer around the property?
Since it wasn't a complete landscape plan and the Plan Commission does have the authority to require so, that's what this is saying, that it would have to come back for official approval with all of the requirements per code. If the Plan Commission directs otherwise, we can amend that condition.
Okay. All right, we'll have to keep that in mind then for future scheduling. And then item 3F, I'm here to just indicate that the owner has I don't want to say heartburn over this item, but we were just kind of wondering, since it indicates that everything that we're doing on site has to be removed if the Komatsu's lease expires. We would like maybe some consideration as to revisit this with future tenants and Plan Commission, and reevaluate the use. We're looking to put in $1.5 million worth of infrastructure, and it's not just a matter of taking out the asphalt. There's asphalt, there's 12 inches of aggregate, there's storm sewer, there's a detention pond, there's lighting, there's everything that's going along with this project. And to just say it all has to come out after Komatsu's lease, we're just wondering if that language can be restructured so that it has to come back to Plan Commission for approval of any future tenants. That's it. Otherwise, everything else that's in there, we agree with.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. We will get to that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tom, who do we have next?
There are a few other registered users who are just going to speak upon request. If any of those participants would like to speak, please raise your hand using the function in Zoom. And I do not have anybody, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Tom. We will go to the commission then, and I'll ask Christine if you'd like to start us off.
Yes, hi. I have a question. It says no stacking over screening in section 3. I think that should be a little bit clarified. What is the screening height, unless it's clarified somewhere else? Carrie?
Yes, I think that's just my truncation of what the actual condition is.
But there will be a height specification for this, right? Because
Section
otherwise.
3, yes. Section 3D states crates shall not be stacked above 7 feet or vegetative screening.
Okay, and I don't know if I'm allowed to make a comment on what Kevin has just shared with us, but from my stand of view, in case of like he has a concern number F, 3F for the restoration to the previous condition. My comment on that would be maybe it needs to be a little bit clarified. We don't want to take down $1.5 million structure. However, it needs to be ready to be occupied by a different tenant instead of us spending public funds on restoring it and then leasing it to someone else. So at least that's my take on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Matt,
I have no comment at this time. Thank you.
Dawn,
No questions.
Greg,
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question, kind of regarding what the applicant just brought up. I did have a voicemail from somebody with the applicant from yesterday. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get back with them to discuss. I'm just curious, as far as the restoration, I guess what's the purpose behind the restoration? Is it really to remove everything that they have put in? If they did improvements such as stormwater or lighting, is that also included in that, so that as it stands now, they would have to remove all of that? And I guess what is the thought process from the city's side on that?
Well, actually, this was the recommendation by the Plan Commission at the last meeting, whether or not the area could be restored with the asphalt taken out. It was for consideration. Plan Commission requested that it be in there, so that's why it's there. As for the details for it, staff would follow what the Plan Commission wants to do here. It probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to require them to remove any kind of underground stormwater detention, because that would serve the purpose for whatever ends up happening on this property, whether the asphalt is removed or not. So I don't think that would extend there. As far as the lighting is concerned, lighting is always dependent upon what the property is being used for, what the proposal is for future use at the time that it's proposed. So likely it wouldn't be required to be removed. I think the reason that this was included, and I don't want to speak for any plan commissioners, but if we're going to be limiting this to 5 years and for Komatsu, the thought process might have been, well, then at that point, do we request them to remove the asphalt, or is the city going to be, reviewing future requests for outdoor storage here by another user or beyond 5 years, which could happen anyway. But that's the origin of where this came from.
Okay, thank you. I guess to the point of that, I mean, I can understand if the asphalt is just too much and it's putting them past any type of code with the amount of coverage of asphalt, or even just removing the asphalt. But I personally wouldn't think that we should be requiring them to remove any type of stormwater infrastructure or anything of that nature. So I don't know what everybody else's take on that is. But that's all, I guess, just discussion on that point. That's the only thing that I would have.
okay. Thanks, Greg. Chris?
I did also get a call from, I'm not sure who it was yesterday as well, regarding this item, and it's specific to F on here. And so, I kind of concur with what Greg said on, if we have infrastructure in there, do they need to take that out or not? I think we need to kind of just tweak this to craft just something a little bit in that, so they don't need to remove everything. That's just my thought.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Don?
So, yeah, I was listening to Carrie and I was kind of looking back at the minutes, and it sounded like commissioners and the staff have had concerns about restoration back to the way it was. I guess I just don't remember. 2 weeks ago wasn't that long ago, but it is long ago, I guess. What were the actual concerns that we would have needed to put that in there? Maybe I just need a reminder if anybody can help me out with that.
I don't know. I don't know.
Anyone from staff remember having concerns about needing to put that in there?
Well, as I said, the Plan Commission mentioned this at the last meeting, wanted it in there. I think the concern was with the extent of asphalt and with the limitation for 5 years and to Komatsu. If at such time this conditional use permit expires and Komatsu's lease terminates, would we then require that the asphalt be removed? I think that the concern was what happens at the end of this conditional use permit. Do we just leave it? Is it fine? The applicant can always come back and ask for an extension, but what are the terms that the Plan Commission is going to want that, if any?
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to remember, why would we want them to remove the asphalt other than for the sake of leaving it, putting it back to the way it was? What was the concern about leaving the asphalt if they in 5 years left? What was that particular concern?
Mayor, this is Commissioner Sullivan. I think the main concern from staff and from engineering was the fact that outdoor storage is not allowed unless it goes through conditional use. So this conditional use is tied, and the asphalt is tied to Komatsu and their need, not the owner. It's the tenant. It's their need that, once they're done, then that it should be removed to the original state unless the commission wants to allow the pavement to remain. And every time that there's anything stored on it, whether it's a trailer, whether it's a box, there needs to be another conditional use. Since this is tied to Komatsu, it'd have to be another conditional use to the next tenant or the actual owner at that time. So trying to eliminate the owner or the next tenant just storing stuff and creating, I guess, an issue with us having to enforce the code at that point. We're just trying to, I guess, get ahead of it. That's my understanding.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, that's an explanation for sure. Thank you.
Okay, is that it, Don? I think I got a thumbs up. That's it, Don?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Fred?
No, I have no comments. People have answered my questions already. Thank you.
Okay. Chauncey?
I do have a question for Carrie. It is item 3D. And I know it states that crates shall not be stacked above 7 feet or the vegetative screening. I know in our meeting a couple weeks ago, the applicant said that the screening can get up to 30 feet high. So is that still acceptable, that the crates can be stacked that high, or is the maximum 7 feet?
You can clarify that, but the intent was for them not to be stacked above the height of the screening that's along the fencing, and that screening is not intended to be a height of 30 feet. Those are arborvitae that are proposed over there, I believe. And those get to, I think, a maximum of 12 feet perhaps, but they're installed at a height of 8 feet. So what this was intending to get at is we are not going to be allowing stacking to the point where we can see them above what's supposed to be screening them. If the Plan Commission wishes for that to be stronger, meaning are you going to restrict it to a specific height of 7 feet, that's fine. We just need that direction from the Plan Commission.
Okay. And so, thank you, Carrie. I do have a question for the applicant. So if we're looking to have the crate stacked no more than 7 feet, can you provide your feedback?
I'm going to be allowing Tom to speak. Please unmute and state your name and address for record.
The name, Tom Bruner. I am at N38 W23344, Broken Hill Circle South in Pewaukee, Wisconsin. Just comment as far as the height of the crates. We have no intention of stacking the crates higher than the 7 feet as we laid out. We've got some crates that in and of themselves are 7 feet tall. And that's why with that number and that height actually came to. We very seldom ever would double stack those types of crates, again, just because of the safety concern around that. So again, the bulk of the crates, if at all, would be double stacked, would be the smaller items that might be just a couple feet tall. But the 7 foot target, that's where our maximum expectation would be.
Thank you. So then I have a final question for Carrie. Is that something that we can change in D and just say stack, not to be stacked above the 7 feet?
Yep, already noted.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Before I go, Assistant Chief Havey, any concerns from fire with what you've seen, heard?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Assistant Chief Mike Havey, Fire. No concerns or comments. I think they're already previously discussed at the previous meetings. Unless there's any other questions for me.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I guess I'll throw my 2 cents out there. The only thing is with F, the restoration. I have a few questions on that. First of all, the question of why. They're plenty over their green space allotment with it. To have them tear that out would see, and again, if you're going to tear that out, you have to put it back to where it was. So you realistically have to take that gravel out, bring in topsoil, the whole deal, reseed it. I think it's quite a feat to have to redo it. I get the code enforcement end of it. My question is, where have we ever done this in the city? And if we start now, that we have to go forward with this duly on just about everybody. So, you know, a few examples. I don't know if the Plan Commission remembers this, but there was a Granite place on 27th near Menards that expanded. We went round and round. They put up fencing and what have you. You know, the neighbors were affected. Neighbors were very close there. We didn't put any restoration back in that one. So that troubles me. You know, there was Badger Machine, I think it was Badger Machine over on 10th Street, you know, as we're repurposing some of these buildings. We haven't laid this down on anybody. So I'm a little worried about that, quite frankly. You know, I really don't see it. We've had plenty of businesses move out and release master lock pops to mine. You know, I mean, other than we did a rezone because the building was weird, the way it was zoned. But beyond that, you know, we didn't get into that restoration. Now maybe, you know, we have some aggregate pits within the city, and we may have some restoration attached to that. I can understand that. That's pretty standard in mining business. Even though this is a mining business, it isn't actively doing mining. So I have some concerns about F, because if we do it here, are we going to do this to every single business that comes through from here on out, including strip malls? And put it this way, if somebody leases the building and paints the building, for instance, do we make them repaint it and put it back the way it was? Would we, if Farm and Fleet went out, we just okayed a trailer parking lot, would they have to restore that back? Was that there? So I have some questions on this one, without a doubt. It's kind of an undue hardship.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
This application aside, there have been instances where the city has required restoration. And I think what this was trying to get at, and I'm not speaking for the Plan Commission, obviously, but I think what this was trying to get at was the concern over the amount of asphalt that was being proposed, and also making sure that it didn't creep. So with the addition of the requirement for curb and gutter, with the addition of the requirement for the landscaping buffer, I think we've pretty much gotten to the point where that area can't expand, at least not easily, and without Plan Commission being notified of it and having the ability to review and approve any expansion in the future. Also, they're getting very close to that 30% open space requirement. So any expansion beyond that probably would put them over. And we have had instances in the past where that outdoor storage area, and again, this location aside, where those things have crept and it does cause issues. We're actually looking into a history of a property where that outdoor storage area and the gravel expansion did go beyond what was approved by the Plan Commission and did creep into the floodplain area. So just an example, not naming any names, but that's kind of where I believe the concern was trying to get at. However, what I'm hearing from the Plan Commission is having that in there is more problematic than just going with what code is and addressing it at the time should it happen. Hopefully it won't ever happen based on the other restrictions that we've included in the conditions and restrictions. So unless there's any further discussion regarding this, I have stricken F from the conditions and restrictions moving forward.
Commissioners, are we okay with that?
I do have a question because our main concern was the amount of outside storage. And so if Komatsu stays there forever, not a problem. However, if they depart after a certain amount of time,
Then the conditional use expires.
yes.
So nobody can store out there anyways, technically.
Yes. However, as we know from, there are other individuals who store things outside and it shouldn't be already. Given that having all of this open space on the outside just may be a concern just for the next tenant, giving the assumption or the illusion that you can store things outside based on the amount of hard surface that you have. So that's my only concern with all of this paved area that can give the illusion that you can store items on the outside.
Valid. I can understand that. Again, I think you'd have to take it up with the business as they came in to occupy, and they would have conditional use, and we would have to reset it for that particular business based on the condition. That's my read on it, but that's why we
Mr.
have.
Mayor?
Yes.
If I could interject here, there's nothing that holds the Plan Commission to not to having this go forward. And let me clarify that. Having a hard surface does not preclude a building addition or a new building in that area in the future. So if, for instance, Komatsu leaves and the next tenant that comes in would prefer to have an addition to the building, having that hard surface is actually kind of not seen as a detriment to that, because you're kind of prepping that area for it in the first place. And then they're not increasing the impervious surface because it's already there. That is one advantage to having this. And, this was something that was recommended for approval. So this is outdoor storage. This is going to be paved, and it's going to be paved if and until there's a new proposal for a redevelopment of the property, whether that's an addition, whether that's a new building, that would be something to handle at a future plan commission meeting when it happens.
Okay. Okay, so as it stands, the recommendation from Carrie was, as the motion is, with striking F.
Correct.
So,
And amending 3D to state that crates shall not be stacked above 7 feet.
doesn't it kind of state that now? Crates shall not be stacked above 7.
Stacked above 7 feet, but it's removing the or vegetative screening.
Oh,
Or-
okay. Got it. Misunderstood you. Thanks for clarification. So are we all clear on that? We are. We'll look for a motion.
Lorick moves that the Plan Commission recommend that the Common Council adopt the conditions and restrictions amending 3D to state stacking no higher than 7 feet and striking 3F as part of the conditional use permit to allow outdoor storage of materials on the property at 10001 South Howell Avenue.
Guzekowski will second.
Chris got the second. Roll call starting with Commissioner Sullivan.
Sullivan, aye.
Carrillo, I.
Lorick, aye.
David, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Hannah, I.
Perfect. Thank you, commissioners. We got through that first difficult roll call, so appreciate that. Thank you much, everybody. That will get us to anybody that was on the call. Thank you very much. Will get us to 5B, and it is review of a certified survey map for general capital group for the properties at 9954, 9962 South 13th Street. Carrie, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My button didn't want to unmute. So this is a request for combining the two properties that are in red on the screen right now. Post consolidation, it will be a conforming lot of just under 17 acres. The certified survey map that is proposed is on the screen right now. As you can see, there are wetlands and floodplain identified on the certified survey map, as well as an easement. There are a couple of conditions that have been recommended. That includes dedicating right-of-way along the area to be incorporated. So the property at 9962. And there's also a recommendation that there be a note or an easement placed on here for the landscape berm. I did have a conversation with the landowner, and there is a concern for those two, and I will let him kind of explain what those concerns are. But these are on here for Plan Commissioner consideration. It is something that whenever a certified survey map is proposed and there is an area for dedication of right-of-way, this is the time that we usually ask for something like that. With regard to the landscape easement, there is a berm that is on the property right now. What the landscape easement as a suggestion would do is kind of put everybody on notice that that berm with the landscaping is required to be maintained and that it could not be removed or redeveloped, at least not without city review and approval. So that would be something for plan commissioners to discuss. And like I said, I will defer to the applicant to kind of address his concerns with those. But there is a suggestion motion on the screen that incorporates those recommendations. And it also does recommend approval. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Tom, is there any residents or applicants wishing to address the council before we go to the council? Or not the council, the commission, sorry, wrong group.
I do have the applicant on the call. Michael, if you'd like to speak, just raise your hand. And then just state your name and address for the record.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is Michael Faber with Ryan Business Park LLC, N17 W24222 Riverwood Drive, Suite 160, Waukesha, Wisconsin 53188. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, Planner Papelbon's description is accurate. I do have a respectful but firm conviction that the two conditions for the dedication, as well as the proposed idea of an easement, are inappropriate. And if you'll bear with me a moment, I'll explain those. I certainly would start by saying I don't fault city staff for suggesting these. They're just trying to do their job and for the most part following normal protocols. But the items I think I'm going to bring up, they may not have been aware of. First of all, as to the idea of an easement along the south side of the berm as we constructed it was not a requirement of the city in any way, shape, or form. This was my idea 15 years ago when we rezoned the property to M1 in the first place. And I told and promised my neighbors in the single family subdivision, English Air, that I was going to build a berm. And so I hired a civil engineer when we got ready to make the site pad ready to design my grading plan in such a way as to create the berm and landscape it. We submitted those drawings to the city. The city approved those drawings. We had the contractor construct the berm and the landscaping in accordance with those approved plans. My view is this is private commercial property. We don't have a right to go change the grading or the landscaping without persuading you, the city, to approve a different plan. So there are already controls in place that make this berm it's going to stay the way it is now unless I persuade you otherwise. A little bit beyond that, this berm is not a public amenity or public feature that the city would somehow get responsibility for as if it was a creek or some kind of natural feature. In my view, my responsibility to maintain the landscaping in the berm is no different than if it was flat land with landscaping on it. And so I just view the idea of an easement as being bureaucratic overreach in a sense, well-intended, but inappropriate in this circumstance. And the idea that maybe other property owners would try to change things without telling anybody, I'd really like to not be painted with the bad boy brush if I'm not a bad boy. So it's not a hill to die on, but I'm opposed to it because I think the city already has plenty of other mechanisms in place that can address it if me or a future property owner were to do something untoward. As to the dedication, I don't think the Plan Commission knows this, and maybe not even the mayor, but as the developer of the business park, we got handed the job of doing the enormous road project for $20 million that's now complete from this property north to Ryan Road and Ryan Road east and west, including improvements to the interchange ramps and so forth. In that whole project, there was over 2 years ago an expectation that we were going to give all of our frontage that was needed to widen 13th Street with no charge, no compensation. But all of the other property owners got compensated fair market value for all of their frontage. All the McDonald's, Wendy's, the houses, everybody else. And while I'm happy to do my part as a good cooperative member of the community, that land that I gave for free to the government entities was worth over $500,000. And I would politely ask, there's got to be a limit to how much I have to give for free when everybody else gets compensated. We went through the process of cutting 12 feet off of the front of this subject parcel when it was owned by homeowners before I bought it this past fall in order to get rid of the ugly house that has not been well taken care of. It's a bit of an eyesore. I think you might agree. And So we already went through the process of how much is needed. The city and the county agreed 12 feet needs to be cut off. This suggests and says, oh, now give us another 19 feet without unnecessary street improvement of widening 13th Street going further to the south, where there's lots of properties that would have to be chopped back. If that ever happens, we're more than happy to cooperate with giving up the 19 feet. But I'd just like to finally be treated the same as everyone else and be compensated for it when and if that ever happens for a further widening going further south. Happy to address any questions that any of you might have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Faber. Appreciate that. Tom, is there anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, there's nobody else registered for this particular item here.
Okay, thank you. We will go to the commission. We'll start this time from what would be my right if we were in person. Commissioner Chandler.
I do not have any questions.
Okay. Commissioner Seifert?
I just have a question about the height of the berm that they're talking about.
That I do not know. I think it's pretty substantial, protecting English air, if I'm not mistaken. Chris, that's your district. You live right there. You're pretty familiar with it. Can you answer?
It's actually Ken's district, but right across the
Oh.
street from mine, so I see it every day. The berm is substantial in size. I can't tell you the height of it or the width of it. It's already there, so.
The applicant would like to respond to that.
Yep, go ahead.
The berm height varies, Mayor, Commissioners, a little bit. It starts out obviously at grade, but very quickly gets up in the range of 12 and then probably at its high point, 15 feet. I'm going to suggest it's probably the biggest berm in the city. It's very, very substantial.
And that was actually done because of the neighborhood to the south. So they were, and I'm sure they're very appreciative of it.
They have expressed that to me personally, that they are appreciative of it. But as I pointed out before, it was done because I promised it to them.
And we put a 4 million square foot building there also, correct?
That was the main reason of why they were happy about it. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So, yeah, that played into it as well. So, okay. Where was I? Fred? Anything further?
No other questions.
Okay. Don?
Not so much a question as a comment. Mr. Faber kind of said a lot there. The right of way, I don't know if there's somebody that's going to respond to everything he said. He sounds like he's opposed to the right of way. Not familiar with the street widening and what he supposedly donated, and I was just kind of hoping somebody on the other side could explain it a little bit. I don't know if that was going to be addressed by either staff or the mayor. I just kind of would like to hear more about that.
Yeah, I thought we'd kind of get to it, and if you want to, it's as good a time as any. Matt, do you have any insight into this? Carrie, Doug? Doug's on the call as well from staff, and any of you three?
Mayor, this is Commissioner Sullivan. I wasn't actually part of the project, but I can speak of past history and our practice. Generally, when there is a development, the land that's being developed provides the right-of-way needs. In this case, the developer was required by the traffic impact analysis to improve 13th Street and Ryan Road, which caused a significant amount of right-of-way from other properties that were impacted by this development. And that meant right-of-way needs. So the developer, under his or their, I'll just say their, development and needs for the development, were required to purchase that right-of-way. This would be a normal practice for any development within the city. So that's how that kind of came about, Commissioner O'Donnell. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that was a good explanation. And you're right, and that's really a great point. A lot of this was driven by the traffic analysis, but because of the traffic in and out of that new business park. It, that shouldn't be overlooked. So, okay. Don, anything further, Don?
No, that's it for now. Thanks, Matt, for the explanation.
Okay. Don, Chris?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Greg?
No, just a couple comments, I guess. As far as the right of way along 13th Street, I'm in support of staff and leaving that in. I understand that this is kind of normal practice. And if I recall, I believe we did a couple CSMs or a CSM along Drexel for a private residence, and they were required also to give that right of way. So I believe it's just normal practice on what we've done in the past. As far as the easement on the berm, I'm not sure if that's open to discussion. I guess I personally don't care either way, as long as we're 100% certain that the city has other mechanisms in place to, and I'm not saying that it would, but to prevent that berm from being removed. I know that the residents right there are extremely happy that it's there. I would just hate for them to one day see that everything's getting re-landscaped and that's getting moved for another development right by them. So that's my take on the two items, I guess, that were brought up.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Commissioner Carrillo?
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Matt, anything to add? I know we threw you out there, but do you have questions, comments?
The only comment would be, this is just general practice for us to request it. It's not required under the CSMs as far as right away. As far as the easement, I think that came out of our department, and it was more of a suggestion. It's not something we're going to live and die by. I do believe that there was an agreement and there was a landscape plan that Mr. Faber did adhere to with the berm and all the landscaping. So with this development, I believe that the landscaping, Carrie would have to correct me on this, that the landscaping, there's some maintenance there and things along. So when Mr. Faber did speak of that, he spoke of that correctly. So, I mean, I don't think it's a big sticking point for us on the easement, but the right of way is something that we would wish for.
So if there is an approved landscape plan, the requirement is for it to be maintained as approved. If there's not, then the requirement is for compliance with all landscape requirements per code. If and until that property ever gets developed in some way, and then, landscape plans would be reviewed again.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is that it, Matt?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Commissioner Hanna?
Okay, I actually have a question. Isn't Highway VR 13th Street, isn't that a county road?
Yes, that is County Highway V.
Yeah, so is the county's has been coordinated with for that dedication? And what's the point on that?
So unfortunately, I've not heard anything from the county. We don't have a direct contact with the county to review CSMs. So while we do have someone with the state for all the state rights of way and properties within a certain distance, we don't have that same connection with the county. So we do know that whenever a CSM is proposed and there is an area where there could be dedication based on previous dedications, that's where it usually comes from. And it is dedicated to the city on the CSM, regardless of whether it's a state or a county highway.
Okay, wouldn't that be included for future, especially if it's dedicated for maintenance purposes? We take maintenance over this specific segment, right?
It's dedicated for public street purposes. It doesn't say specifically for maintenance. It just says for public street purposes.
Yeah, but it's gonna be maintained by the city.
No,
No?
no, it's a county road. Unless there's a specific project like what we had before where the city might be involved in some way. The city does not maintain 13th Street.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was trying to understand. Go ahead.
This is Commissioner Sullivan. In regards to maintenance, under municipal code, you're required to maintain your ditch or any area from the front of your property to the road. So that would be mowing and maintaining, clearing the sidewalks and such. So they would still fall under our municipal code as far as maintenance, the landowner.
Okay, so that's what I was trying to clarify. So this is already in our code to maintain this once it get dedicated to public use.
That is correct.
Okay. And number two is I agree with Carrie on the others. Number two, I believe it should be part of this motion since, like Carrie said, if it gets occupied by someone else in the future, landscape berm should be maintained. And we're talking about only landscape, nothing else. So landscape berm should be maintained for protecting the neighbors who are very happy with having that berm. Other than that, I don't have any other comments or questions.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Really, I don't think there's any concerns for fire. Mike, if there is, feel free to speak up, but I can't see where this would impact you guys greatly right now.
Sorry, I lost my camera for a moment. Again, good evening. No concerns from fire on this project.
Okay. As for me, everything's pretty much been stated. I think Alderman Lark summed it up pretty well. And all the commissioners kind of hit their points. So the easement, as Matt stated, it's not a deal breaker or anything like that, but I would support staff as well with what their needs are and what's standard. So with that, if there's no further discussion or questions, if there are, please speak up. If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I have one quick question, Mayor.
Yes.
It's probably for the applicant. I noted that he said that there's no intention of, as of now, moving the berm or moving that berm since he promised that it would be there, unless he's able to persuade the city. I'm just curious, is there anything he's able to share as far as plans for this parcel once it's combined? Does he plan on coming to try to persuade to remove the berm? Is there thoughts of moving the berm if he's developing this parcel? Is there anything that he can provide as far as plans for this parcel once it's combined?
Good question. Mr. Faber, any comments? I mean, at this time?
There's a permanent berm there, isn't there?
Sure. Our intention is, I'll probably die before this berm would ever be changed. It was, number one, way too expensive to build. Number two, I promised the neighboring homeowners that we would do it. We've got theoretical plans for where a building and parking would sit on the site that respects where we already built the berm in anticipation of what we were going to do. My request not to have an easement is that there are already mechanisms in place for people to maintain their approved landscaping, and we just don't need belt and suspenders. It's the principle of the thing. Alderman Lorik, I can address your question. We have no intention. We're never going to change that berm. We love it, and my neighbors love it. We don't have any intention of changing it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion or question?
Yeah, Mayor, as long as I've heard the discussion, Doug Seymour, Director of Community Development. I tried not to intervene here, but just a few kind of comments and clarifying statements. I mean, as far as the berm is concerned, I mean, I have absolutely no issues. That berm is going to be there, and if the city needs the assurance that it's going to remain there, they can do so as part of the landscape plan review for whatever develops on that property. So that berm's going to be there, and it's going to be maintained. I really don't have any concern about that. The issue with the right-of-way dedication, it is a Chapter 14 requirement that if right-of-way or future right-of-way shows on the official map of the city, and there's a land division, in this case it's consolidation, but it's a certified survey map, that land be dedicated as part of the CSM. And I think it was mentioned before, there were some properties on Drexel Avenue that had contested that, and that's fine. But that being a requirement of Chapter 14, it's the council who could grant relief on that and not necessarily the Plan Commission.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification, Doug. Appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, commissioners, would you like to entertain a motion if there's no further questions or discussion?
So for the motion, are we, I guess, are we doing 1 and 3 and striking 2?
I would, this is Commissioner Hanna, I would still would like to see that easement along the property here. It's not just for landscaping, it's for the maintenance of it and controlling it in that area. So I would favor having it still here.
Staff's input is it a deal breaker for staff? Because when would the city take over maintenance of that we'd need the easement? I guess that's kind of a question, unless it's in non-compliance, right?
I don't think it's a deal breaker, Mr. Mayor. If we remove it, we do have code requirements, and at such time the property comes up for development or redevelopment, we would have the opportunity to review those plans at that time. And if needed at that time, we could address the requirement or the non-requirement. But for this particular item, it's not anything that that staff has a strong feeling over. It was the suggestion, as Commissioner Sullivan stated.
Thank you.
So this is Commissioner Hanna. Just a question. Doesn't mean that when we say it's an easement, it allows the city to go in case if there is any conflict, to maintain that berm and the landscape until this issue or whatever future issues has been resolved? Isn't that the purpose of the easement, not really the landscaping codes?
What?
Pretty much my understanding, easement is allowing us to go on the land and maintain it and having the opportunity to fix whatever needs to be fixed there, no?
Staff, can you address that, please?
The purpose of an easement, and the easement is, the rights associated with that easement are described in the easement itself. So if it's a maintenance easement, it would be described in that as well. Typically, when you have a landscape easement, it would be for the purposes of, again, noting that this is to, remain in effect and is not, subject to, and let's kind of play out what might seem to be a, almost a nonsensical scenario. The owner of that property is not going to wake up one day and say, I just want to take that berm down. That's just not going to happen. And from the standpoint of, if we are concerned about how that landscaping is maintained or what the landscape plan for that berm is, you will have a crack at that when the site and building plans for that parcel come in. So I guess to answer the question, the purpose of the easement, it could be anything. It depends on how the easement is written. Is it written for the city's benefit and obligation to go in and maintain? I would be very careful about that, about doing that on private property. I mean, it's not, I guess, not out of bounds, but certainly not the business that the city wants to get into.
And that I would agree with. And I mean, most of the time, the last time we had an easement issue, it concerned maintenance for a drainage pipe. It was in a field on the southeast side of the city, and we needed that because we always needed to access that pipe. I don't know if we have that here, and I think I kind of agree with staff. I think we have some built-in stuff on the back end And the applicants stated that too, so.
I agree too.
So
I agree.
I think it's the pleasure of that person making the motion if you want to strike two. So we'll entertain a motion on item 5B. And again, if you'd like to make the motion and strike two, feel free. It's my opinion. It could be struck because we do have safeguards built in.
Lorick moves that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by Linda Gorin's Levy General Capital Group for the properties at 9954 and 9962 South 13th Street be approved with the following conditions. Number one, that the right-of-way along County Highway V 13th Street is dedicated for public street purposes and included on the map prior to recording. And number two, that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to recording.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call, starting with Commissioner Carrillo.
Grillo, I.
Lorick, aye.
Ukavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Hold aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, no.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, I.
Thank you all. Appreciate that. That will get us to 5C. And this is to review a request, again, submitted by Linda Groans Levy for General Capital Group to amend an existing plan unit development to include the property at 9962 South 13th. And I will hand it off to Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just incorporating that property that was part of the CSM. So it is included into the overall Ryan Business Park PUD. There are no additional changes that have been requested as part of this application. And for those who are just trying to get an idea of what we're talking about, it's the property at 9962 South 13th Street. So it's less than an acre that will be incorporated into the overall PUD. There is a motion for approval suggested on the screen. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Tom, is there anybody wishing to speak on this?
Nobody specifically registered for this. If anybody's on the call, please raise your hand if you would like to speak, though. And I do not have anybody raising their hand right now, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you. Seeing nobody in cyber world for us, we'll go right to the commission. Commissioner Hannah, you want to start us off?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Sullivan,
I have no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Carrillo,
Nothing for me.
Alderman Lorick,
Nothing from me, thank you.
Alderman Guzekowski,
Nothing for me.
Commissioner O'Danny,
Nothing.
Commissioner Siebert,
No questions.
and Commissioner Chandler.
No questions.
I have none as well, so we can motion on 5C, please.
Lorick moves that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council approve the planned unit development amendment, adding the property at 9962 South 13th Street after a public hearing.
Seifert,
Guzekowski will
second.
second.
I think Fred beat you there, Chris. Bless you. We will start the roll, starting with Alderman Lorick.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, I.
Grillo, I.
Okay. That gets us to 5D, and that is to review site, building, and related plans submitted by Educators Credit Union for an institution with a drive-through facility on the property at 130 West Town Square Way. Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Plan commissioners may recall way back in 2015, this property was actually approved for a financial institution with drive-through facilities for US Bank. And over the years, for various reasons, the property has changed hands, and now Educators Credit Union is requesting review of the site and building plans for financial institution for them on the same property. Now, through DTS MUPDD regulations, drive-through facilities for financial institutions do not require a conditional use permit. So just make that clear in case there was any confusion why this doesn't require a CUP. It is an allowed use. And on the screen right now, we got very last minute adjustments to the site plan, very minor adjustments right before this meeting. So I apologize that the plan commissioners were not given this prior to. However, the overall layout has not changed from what was included in your packets. The property will be accessed through a shared drive that is already in place, and that is here. And there's also a drive that is shared here. So those are the two access points for this property. There is no vehicular access to Howell Avenue, and the access around the building in the center will get people to those drive-through facilities that we will discuss in a moment. So what we are talking about with these proposals for DTS MUPDD, which we actually haven't done in quite a while, those are the requirements in addition to code that we will be presenting for tonight. The plans are generally in conformance with the general development plan and regulating plan for DTS, and the building and the parking all meet setback requirements as proposed. The parking that is shown on the property you'll see is in two areas. One is here, 5 stalls approximately by the bioswale, and the remainder of the parking on the south side here. Now, approximate parking supply and demand requirements within Drexeltown Square are 3.5 to 5 stalls for every 1,000 gross square feet for this particular type of use. And that would bring the requirement to between about 13 and 19 parking stalls. What's being proposed are 22 parking stalls. And staff have been coordinating back and forth with the applicant's consultants regarding the parking stalls that are over by the bioswale. So you will note that in this plan, it incorporates that, that hatched area for a striped crosswalk. And that's one of the recommendations that was included under the parking section on page 3. So if the Plan Commission is satisfied with that solution that was presented, staff is supportive of that solution. It's just identifying where people who are going to be parking here are going to be crossing that north-south potential travel way. So it alerts the vehicles in that area to watch out because people are going to be crossing there. There was also a suggestion that this be signed for employee parking, but that's on maintenance and operation at this point. Staff is supportive of the solution that's here on the screen. As far as maintenance and operations are concerned for the specific use, this would be a replacement to the existing facility that's on Ryan Road at 150 West Ryan Road. And this would be it would be kind of like what we had talked about across the street with North Shore Bank, in which case the lobby operations would be slightly different from the teller. And these use those virtual teller machines that we had become familiar with the North Shore Bank proposal. So the drive-through lanes are actually going to be teller for remote access. The people who would be using these would actually be talking with somebody in Sturtevant at those locations, and patrons who go into the building itself will be there for the specific services that are provided by the employees in the building. So there isn't that specific connection that you would have with a traditional bank. There's 2 lanes of these, what they're called TOMs or ITMs, that's teller operated machine or an interactive teller machine. So 2 lanes for that, and then 1 lane for the ATM, your traditional ATM. We do have hours of operation for the lobby and for the drive up. There would be approximately 5 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee in the building itself. And the lobby would be open 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. On Friday, and then 9 to noon. And then the drive-ups would be open 8 to 6 Monday through Thursday, 8 to 7 on Friday, and 8 to 1 on Sunday. There is a proposal for 1 trash enclosure on the the southwest corner of the parking lot here. And that is actually surrounded on 3 sides by landscaping, and the enclosure, as we'll see in just a moment, that will match in terms of building materials with the building itself. Signs, while they were shown on the building, they're placeholders for right now, with the exception of the monument sign. We don't have plans for the monument sign, but the location for the monument sign is compliant with all setback requirements, and it is outside of the easement area. It does incorporate landscaping, as you can see on the landscape plan on the screen. There is landscaping throughout. There's the only place that there is not proposed landscaping is around those 5 parking stalls by the bioswale. That's by design. The bioswale has its own incorporated landscaping, and that is maintained by the city. So there is no requirement for these particular parking stalls to have further landscaping. One note about the landscape plans that were submitted, however, we are missing the heights of the plants at maturity versus installation, so that'll just be one of those requirements for revised plans prior to permitting. Lighting locations were also included in Plan Commissioner packets, not going to get into them here. Suffice to say that the poles in the parking lot fixtures are those that were approved as part of the DTS approved light fixtures and poles, so that's all compliant. The remainder is for the recessed lighting for the canopy over the ITM machines and the building itself, and then for the monument sign itself. We are recommending that the lights be a maximum of 3,500 kelvins. However, there's no immediate adjacent residential within the area, so that would be something for Plan Commissioners to either include or not include in the recommendation. Turning to the building elevations, each of them are going to be incorporating stone and glass, a little bit of siding, and that's really the majority of the proposal. Everything meets the requirements in terms of minimum glazing. The stone is going to be the standard required thickness per code, so thank you for clarifying that. This is what would be seen from the east, so this is what would be viewed from Howell Avenue. And this is south in the parking lot and facing the development to the south. North, which would be facing the property that has Water Street Brewery. And you'll see that there is an area for nighttime deposit. And I think I missed the west. There we go, the west. Pretty much mirrors the east. This is the entry elevation that you'll see from West Town Square Way, accessed by the parking lot. The canopy will also incorporate this kind of low stone wall connected by 2 stone-wrapped piers, and a quite kind of a cantilevered roof effect over the ATM and the ITM machines. And then the trash enclosure, which is in the upper right corner, that again is going to be constructed with stone to match the building. And the gate itself will be a non-flammable composite material. One last thing to note, there's one transformer that has been identified in the northeast corner that is surrounded by landscaping. Any other mechanical units, be it rooftop, ground mounted, or building mounted, those would also have to be screened and approved by the Community Development Department prior to permitting, unless the Plan Commission suggests otherwise. So what I'm going to end with now are the renderings for the proposal. This is an aerial shot looking kind of southeast to northwest. And this is looking from Howell Avenue. And from Howell Avenue, kind of southeast to northwest again. And finally, this is the west elevation that you'd be seeing as you pull into the parking lot. With that, there is a suggested motion, one of two, that incorporates approvals with some conditions. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Tom, is the applicant with us? Would they like to say anything, or would they just like to hold off for questions if they're with us?
We have several people registered, and I do have one person raising their hand right now.
Okay, please put them on.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ryan Schmitz with Plunkett Research Architects. We're at 209 South Water Street in Milwaukee, 53204. I'm the project architect for the project, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. Anybody else from your team or resident like to say anything before we start with the commission?
There is nobody else raising their hand, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Tom. We'll start off from my right again. Commissioner Chandler, want to start us?
Surely. I do have a question for the applicant. Can you provide some information on the flow of traffic? Because we have two places that vehicles can access the property, but is one for entrance, one is for exit. Yeah, just if you could provide feedback on the flow of traffic to the property and around the property.
Sure. Again, this is Ryan Schmitz with Plunkett Research Architects. You can see we do have two site access points. The one to the south where there is double loaded parking would be for two-way traffic. And once you get to the end of that parking aisle, that would be one way of traffic up to the north, wrapping around the building to that, to the drive-through, the ITM canopies. Correct, Gary. And then that is one way, and you can only exit back out to the access drive.
Is the road to the north, is that a shared entrance with Water Street? Is that a connected lot?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And so is that exit, or to get to that exit, can traffic come and go in that area?
Oh, in through Water Street that way? Yes. So you could exit potentially either way, I would imagine.
Correct. Yeah, it's a little convoluted to get to our site as it's an access road off of another access road, essentially. But yes, there are 2 points of access to the north and to the south for us.
And then the area between the ATM and the crosswalk. So is that traffic, it can be either way? And
yes, it is two-way through the access drive.
Okay. And so what's the plan to, I guess, keep everyone safe? Because that's a lot of movement back and forth from various entrances or exits in this area.
We could certainly sign it accordingly for pedestrian crossing.
So will there be any like speed bumps to assist?
I believe we do have a traffic calming element at the exit of the ITM area. You see there's a solid dark line running right there. That would provide notice that you're entering that access drive.
Oh, okay. Help me understand, because to my understanding, what Carrie showed before, the traffic goes one way to the far left. I guess, is that east? So you come around the building and the traffic can only go one way after it gets past the parking
Correct.
spaces. So are you saying that the traffic can now enter in the other way?
It cannot enter from the north.
Okay. Okay. And so just going back to my question in regards to the pedestrians. So is there anything in that location to assist with safety, with the crosswalk in particular?
I'm sorry, which crosswalk are we referring to? The one that she is highlighting?
That one?
My apologies. The crosswalk that's new as of today or yesterday, the one that has the arrow closest to it?
Yep. Like I said, we could add traffic calming devices or signage.
Or signage. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Commissioner Seibert?
Yeah, I've got a question about signage. Are they having wall signs on both the east and the west end of the building?
I think it'll come separately, but Carrie, do you want to clarify that? I think they just have placeholders in the renderings.
Yes, they are showing signs, but we have not received those plans yet, and those detailed plans would have to come back before the Plan Commission.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Fred. Don?
I have no questions.
Chris?
Alderman Guzikowski has no questions. Also, it's a good looking building. So it's a nice addition there. What is happening with the Ryan Road location though? Will that be closed up or will the building be sold or?
If Glenn Brusky from Educators Credit Union is on the line, I think you would need to raise your hand, but I would have him speak to that from an operational standpoint.
Absolutely. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Glenn Brusky, W295 South 5256 Holiday Oak Court in Genesee. With Educators Credit Union. We haven't talked in detail what we do it, but I think our intent would be to sell the building.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Greg?
No, I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Dawn?
Nothing for me.
Matt?
Nothing here. Thank you.
Christine?
Nothing here. I just like the aesthetic of the building. So very nice addition.
Yes, I would agree with Christine. It's nice. We kind of went through this with the drive-through, so we have experienced this before. I think a lot of the commission has been on throughout the history of DTS. This is actually our last lot within DTS, I believe. So it's nice to see.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I don't mean to interrupt, but it's the last perimeter lot.
Perimeter lot?
Yes.
Okay, so we still have some.
Yeah, we have
probably
two lots at the front. Yeah.
Okay, great. Either way, I can't agree more with the commissioners. I think it's a nice looking addition. And again, the traffic is always concerning, but I don't think it's much different than we've experienced with a few other developments, if not right within DTS, very close. Similar institutions. So looks good. I'm glad it meets all the glazing and the brick requirements. So fire, do you have any concerns around the building? Is there enough room for you guys to get in and out of there with what you need to do?
Yeah, the size of the arrangement of the lot, we don't have any concerns.
Okay, thank you, Mike. With that, we'll entertain a motion.
Hannah moved that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plans submitted by Glenn Brusky, Educators Credit Union, for the property at 130 West Town Square Way with the following conditions. 1, that all relevant code requirements are in effect. 2, there shall be no pavement or grading within the bioswale easement. 3, that details plans for signage are reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission prior to submission of sign permit applications. 4, that all light sources are shielded and directed downward, and that the color temperature of the fixtures are limited to a maximum of 3,500 kelvins. 5, that the landscape plans are revised to incorporate staff comments and code requirements. 6, that the exterior stone veneer meets the minimum 4-inch requirements per code. 7, that the plans are revised to include locations for all mechanicals, transformers, and utilities, all mechanical equipments, transformers, and utility boxes, ground, building, and rooftop shall be screened from view. 8, that all details, revised, and finalized plans are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications.
Seifert seconds.
Okay, roll call, beginning with me. Bukevich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, I.
Grillo, I.
Lorik, aye.
Okay. Congratulations, guys. Nice looking building. We look forward to it. I guess just one question. Any idea when you guys will start on it? And maybe staff has a target date. If Ryan, any idea if you're still on with us? Glenn, anybody?
Stand by. We're just unmuting, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, we are looking forward to it, so it'll be a great addition.
We are planning on starting in spring, so hopefully April, once the weather breaks.
Excellent, excellent.
Awesome.
Look forward to it.
Thank you.
So that will get us to adjournment. Before we adjourn, just want to thank staff that, Assistant Chief Havey, Tom was with us tonight, as always, Carrie, Doug, and everybody behind the scenes that really puts this stuff together over the course of 2 weeks, makes our jobs easier. And also the commissioners, the public ain't aware, but you guys commit to this every 2 weeks. Really, truly appreciate it, because you guys really do put in a lot of work and a lot of time and effort at it, so thank you. With that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Grillo moves to adjourn at 7:33.
Hannah, second.
Seifert seconds.
Yeah, Fred. Hannah got the second. Roll call, starting with Alderman Guzekowski, please.
Guzekowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, I.
Grillo, I.
Lorik, aye.
Bukevich, aye. Okay, everybody, good night. We will see you 2 weeks.